So that's it for season one of The Alienist. And I have to say, first of all, not a satisfying murder mystery, but I think that's okay. I don't think that was the point of the show. So when I say not a satisfying murder mystery, the reveal of the killer, it wasn't a twist. Certainly wasn't a twist. It also didn't weave together all of this different evidence in a really satisfying way. So the reveal of who the killer was, somewhat unsatisfying. How they caught the killer, I'm stumped. Now, someone else came up with this. They said that, so they're looking at the map of the waterways, and Kreizler realizes that the killer has a lot of pain. Pain is carried in the heart, so the killer is going to kill at the very heart of the waterways. Now, a better explanation is Kreizler was looking at the map in the same way that the killer would look at the map, because Kreizler and the killer, they both have this pain. In some sense, they're the same at the fundamental essence. So Kreizler was able to finally see like the killer sees. So when he looked at the map, he was able to see the way the killer wouldn't go to the same spot. Now, this doesn't explain why Sarah also arrived at the exact same time and figured it out as well. It certainly doesn't explain why Connor. Now, I assume Connor followed Sarah, and it was just a double coincidence rather than a triple coincidence that they all showed up at the same time. But either way, somewhat unsatisfying way that they caught the killer, but I think that was the whole point. I think if you want to find a message, it's that the world is incomprehensible. A lot of aspects of the world, a lot of the evil, the abuse, we can't understand it. And yet we still have to forgive the world, to forgive the people who have hurt us, and still open ourselves up to the world and everything that comes with it. And that's what we do see Kreizler do with the forgiveness, forgiving his father and giving John the ring. Seems to be opening himself up to friends and other people, and I guess that's the message we take away. So in some ways, the lack of a satisfying ending, I think, is part of the point. And the ending, it's happy but very messy, and again, it goes to the nature of reality. So Connor, he dies, which I guess is good, but he gets honored as the person who brought down the killer. So kind of bittersweet. And John and Sarah, obviously there's love and affection both ways, but because Sarah either wants to focus on her career or just doesn't feel this raw attraction, they're not going to ride off into the sunset together, and they don't. Kreizler, he never really finds out the true nature of evil, and he has to learn to make peace with that. And we get this great scene of Kreizler banging on the chest of the killer saying, tell me why you did this. And it's funny, when we think of monsters, a lot of our image of monsters, and you think of what would your image in relation to monster be, and it could be cowering from a monster, running away from a monster, or it could be killing a monster and triumphantly slaying a monster and holding a monster's head. Kreizler, his image would be pounding on the chest of a monster, screaming, why are you a monster? Why do you do what you do? Why am I a monster? Why is my father a monster? And Kreizler, when he goes to find the killer by himself and doesn't alert the police, you could say it's for good reasons because he doesn't trust the police, but you could also say Kreizler has always cared more about understanding the killer than really stopping the killer. And you could say, again, you could give Kreizler the benefit of the doubt and say, well, he wanted to understand the killer and not just stop the killer because he wanted to prevent future killers and really get to the root of the problem. But I don't think that's true. I think maybe towards the end it was different, but I think at the start, Kreizler really, he just wanted to understand for the sake of understanding. He didn't care that whether he could understand and then actually fix a problem. He just wanted to understand regardless of whether it would actually help. So what answers do we get for why the killer committed these crimes? We get a hodgepodge of different factors. We see the societal blame, the inequality, and we get this great contrast between the opulence and the opera houses and just the streets and the horrible conditions people are living in. We get the parental abuse. We get the religiously tinged parental abuse, which gave the killer these twisted ideas of religion. We see the PTSD and the violence that the killer probably experienced in this brutal frontier wars. And we get the racism that the killer seemed to have, maybe from those frontier wars. So it's just a hodgepodge of different factors. But again, which factor is the true answer, we'll never know. And I loved when Kreizler tries to pin it on mother issues, and the killer just sneers at him and says, really, you think that's what this is all about? It was a nice callback to earlier. Kreizler was talking to another killer and doing this armchair theorizing. And the killer went along with it for a bit, and then just laughed in his face and said, you're not even close. Like, you think you know so much, but you don't know anything. So again, we're left with some ideas that maybe had something to do with it, but as far as a clear-cut answer, we don't get one. And probably my favorite part of this finale was when they're looking at the brain. And to us, it seems so comical that you would take a monster who's committed all these horrible acts, you would cut their head open, look at their brain, and expect to see some kind of diseased, rotting brain that reflected, their horrible crimes. We would say, no, of course, you're going to see the same brain regardless. But there was a time where people had somewhat naive notions that the world was that simple, and monsters, they would have monstrous brains, and even later people would think, well, monsters would have monstrous genes. And the more we learn, the more it's kind of the disheartening conclusion that no, they have basically the same genetics and the same biology as everyone else. And I do like the explanation they tried to give where the killer did what he did because he saw how sick society was, and this was his weird way of protesting and holding a mirror up to society. So you think of rappers, artists, holding a mirror up to society by talking about societal problems in their art. This is like a horribly twisted, warped version of that, where someone goes out, does these horrible, ugly things, and when you ask why, they say, well, I'm trying to hold a mirror up to how awful society is, because what I'm doing, this just reflects, this is my artistic representation of just the rotten nature of society and all these societal problems. A few positive things about the finale. This show's been hit or miss with me as far as actually being dark and edgy. I feel like they've tried to be, and sometimes it has been pretty dark, sometimes not. Here, I mean, when he's hitting killing the cats with the bag, I don't know how many cats were in that bag. That was pretty dark and unsettling, and I always say we're just exposed to so much just toxicity throughout our lives now. For you to watch something and for it to actually unsettle you, it's something. And this show, for me, it's been beautiful at times. I've really found it visually good to look at, but sometimes not. I've been kind of underwhelmed by it. This episode was fantastic. I love the shots we got of the streets. I love the opera, actually seeing the opera on the stage, but also the beautiful opera house. I love the banquet hall we see at the end of the episode. So the shots we got of the streets, the interiors, it was great in this episode. And I'll say now, I really hope we do get a season 2, because the things I like about the show, the visually, the exteriors, the backgrounds, the sets, and the costumes. I love the visuals. I love the characters. I love the actors. I will say Byrne, he is the unsung. He's done such a great job just conveying this malevolent presence by not going on these great monologues. Like, he hasn't been given a lot of lines or a lot to really sink his teeth into, but just his look, his smoldering looks are fantastic. I wish we got more out of him. So I love the actors, I love the look. The things I don't like as much, just the actual plot and some of the decisions they've made. So if they do bring it back for a different season, hopefully we can get a better plot, some better elements, but the same look, the same characters, and we could have a great season. So yeah, visually this episode was really nice. I love some of the close-ups we get of the different characters with the nice blurred backgrounds, the bokeh effects. Like I say, the opera I loved looking at, and the opera was actually Don Giovanni by Mozart. Yes, that Mozart. I only know because everyone knows Don Giovanni. That's the opera where they get the guy gets dragged to hell at the end of the opera, and we actually see that. That's a scene we see at the end of the opera here. So nice little touch there. And then for the bad and disappointing, Marcus and Esther, whatever was going on there, I don't even want to talk about it. It's too upsetting. Just horrible storyline. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. As far as John and Sarah, I don't know if I want them to end up together in the very end, if there is a season 2. I'm not sure whether they should end up together. What I will say is the scene we saw at the end of John taking her cab and then smiling at her and her smiling back, I really liked that scene a lot better than I liked their kiss scene. Not a big fan. I thought it was very awkward. So again, I'm not sure whether I want them to end up together in the end, but as far as comparing the scene of them kissing to the scene of him kind of teasing her, taking her cab and smiling, I want more of that last scene, whatever that means for their storyline, I don't know, but I know I responded better to that scene for sure. And I don't know of anyone in real life that also watches this show, so if anyone wants to comment, I love to read comments. How did you like the show? What parts did you like? What parts you didn't? Are you excited for season 2? What do you want to see? Any other similar shows you'd recommend? If you read the book, I haven't read the book, so I don't really know. I know it's a very popular book. I don't know what was special to the book that made it resonate so much with people. If you read the book, what did you like so much about it? Do you feel the show captured it? Do you feel it was a satisfying conclusion to this end of the season? Any explanation for how they did manage to catch the killer? Because I think it was very fuzzy. So any of those comments would be really appreciated. I'll definitely read my comment section for this video.